Am I actually live? That's the question. Is this live? Am I live at all? Am I live? Am I actually live? What in the hell? I'm gonna lose my mind. I hate this computer so much. I have no idea what any of that was about this morning. None. All right. Well, I don't even know if my wife is in here to mod right now. So I'm gonna have to do some stuff. I'm so sorry, guys. I always hate it when I have to do this stuff. Because now I've got to like resend it to everything, like Patreon and stuff. I do not like this computer. I really want a new computer. I need a PC because Chromebook it crashes so often because nothing is built to, like, no software is built to work with it. So, like, it's good if you just want to use it for, like, documents and, like, maybe Zoom calls. Though I've had people even say they've had problems with that, so. Okay, that's not correct. All right. Share. Stream crash. All right. Okay. All right. Hopefully that will help a bit. I literally cannot pull up the stream on my phone. I don't know what's happening. So that I can post it to Blue Sky and the. Okay, there we go. Yeah, now I got to do all the maintenance stuff. Stream crashed. There we go. All right. Cool. Today's breakfast with Pop Pop is raspberry Greek yogurt. Usually I try to eat some of my breakfast before I get started on things, but seeing as I've been fighting with my computer for the last 45 minutes, actually. It's been about 45 minutes I've been fighting with this thing. So, and if I don't eat my breakfast, then I'll be all diabetic all over the place, and y'all don't want that. Okay, so today we are going to be working out of Common Prayer, a liturgy for ordinary radicals by Shane Claiborne, Jonathan Wilson, Hartgrove, I think, and Enuma Okoko. It is a liturgy that focuses more on Jesus's messages of like anti-imperialism and those sorts of things. I like to call it the anarchist liturgy. So we're going to be working out of that instead of like the classical liturgy. All right. So, if you guys have a Bible, I highly recommend opening it or going to get it. Um, if not, there is a website called Bible Gateway. You can choose whatever um, translation you would like in there. I highly recommend the NRSVUE. So today is February 27th. And we're going to be talking Constantine. Now, if you have been watching me for a while, you know that I have some personal beef with Constantine. For a lot of the same reasons the creators of this liturgy do. Which is that I do not think that Christianity was ever meant to be combined with empire. I think it was always intended to be for marginalized people, and always intended to be counterculture. It doesn't make sense otherwise. But that's why you have so many Christians in America right now who are having these weird persecution fantasies. Because the stories don't make sense if you are the empire. Um, NRSVUE is the Bible we'll be using. I fucking love raspberry yogurt. Mm. Okay. So, in the year 280, Roman Emperor Constantine was baptized into the church, beginning Christianity's transition from a minority movement into an empire's religion. It was not long before the persecuted became the persecutors, and the cross of Christ was exchanged for the sword of Rome. So there is a through line throughout the Bible, over and over and over and over and over again, which is God hates empire. God hates empire. Empires will always, always, always fall to their own hubris, 100% of the time. Which I actually think, as this is both a kind of horrifying message and a hopeful one for people who live in the empire, right? Because right now, as marginalized people within this empire, we're like, yeah, no, this obviously isn't working for us, right? The empire is not working for us. But also, when empires fall, things get crazy. It kind of feels like the end of the world, which is why I think the book of Revelation was made, because you're dealing with this like decaying empire. This empire that doesn't have much more steam left in it. And those tend to follow kind of a pattern, you know? That is why I think we're seeing a lot of parallels between what's happening right now in the book of Revelation, not because, the prophecy is being fulfilled and the end of the world is being hearkened in, but because when empires fall, they tend to kind of follow a formula. And we're just watching history repeat itself mostly. A non-study question: does live stream watch hours count for monetizing the channel for y'all? Yes, it does. The only Bibles I have are my childhood KJV and a German family Bible. There is a website, I don't know if you caught this, called Bible Gateway. You can look at it on your phone. It has all the Bible translations in it. Or you can follow along with your KJV. Just know that some of the stuff is going to be different. It's terrible because an empire's fall means the most marginalized will die. Yes. And that is why I think, in the book of Revelation, it's kind of the hope, you can tell in it that there's the hope that Christ will return and save all of his people from a dying empire. And I think that there's a lot of us kind of having similar feelings about, like, hoping that there's a savior that will come and save us from all of this. Um so let's see. What are we working with today? I actually haven't checked out these verses, and I do not memorize Bible verses. Okay, I don't. I memorize through lines, and I try to have good media literacy, but I don't really see the point in memorizing verses, unless you plan on weaponizing them, and I don't like to do that. I would rather understand the Bible than memorize it. All right. So it looks like we're going to be working with Hebrews, should I? Hebrews 12, verses 12 through 29. If I was talking about this, I would have chosen a liturgy a liturgy passage from James. We may go over that one too. James is the only book of the Bible that I can't point to certain verses, but I have a lot of those stored away, because it's my favorite book of the Bible. Okay. All right. Therefore, lift your drooping hands and strengthen your weak knees, and make straight paths for your feet, so that what is lame may not be put out of joint, but rather be healed. Pursue peace with everyone, and the holiness without which no one will see the Lord. See to it that no one fails to obtain the grace of God, that no root of bitterness springs up and causes trouble, and through it may become defiled. See to it that no one becomes an immoral and godless person, as Esau was, who sold his birthright for a single meal. You know that later, when he wanted to inherit the blessing, he was rejected, for he found no chance to repent, even though he sought the blessing with tears. You have not come to something that can be touched, a blazing fire, and darkness, and gloom, and the tempest, and the sound of a trumpet, and a voice whose words made the hearers beg that not another word be spoken to them. For if they could not endure the order that was given, even if an animal touches the mountain, it shall be stoned to death. Indeed, so terrifying was the sight that Moses said, I tremble with fear. But you have come to Mount Zion, and to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, and to innumerable angels in festal gathering, and to the assembly of the firstborn who are enrolled in heaven, and to God the judge of all, and to the spirits of the righteous made perfect, and to Jesus, the mediator of a new covenant, and to the sprinkled blood that speaks a better word than the blood of Abel. See that you do not refuse the one who is speaking, for if they did not escape when they refused the one who warned them on earth, how much less will we escape if we reject the one who warns from heaven? At that time his voice shook the earth, but now he has promised, yet once more I will shake not only the earth but also heaven. This phrase, yet once more, indicates the removal of what is shaken, that is, created things, so that what cannot be shaken may remain. Therefore, since we are receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken, let us show gratitude, by which we may offer to God an acceptable worship with reverence and awe, for indeed our God is a consuming fire. So Paul he's popping off in this. So essentially, Paul in this passage, I know it's very wordy, is uh, trying to encourage solidarity. Um, and he's trying to encourage this solidarity under um, the banner of this new religion, right? God, Paul, damn it, you've such a pain in my ass. This is such a weird passage to choose for this part of the liturgy. Um, you know what? We're moving to James. I can do better. I don't know why. I mean, yeah, like it's like a passage of solidarity, but I'm like, okay, I'm not really sure how this connects to the passages that you have in the liturgy today. Maybe if I really sat and thought about it, but we're gonna move on to James because I like James better, and you guys will too. I thought it was a little weird to use that passage from Hebrews, but I thought maybe, if I read it aloud, maybe I'll miss something. All right. New. That's the wrong. I'm sorry. I'm just now getting used to this format too. I am not used to holding public Bible studies. I'm used to sitting in my room and contemplating in silence. I so I have this other one here, God, Gospel, and Gender, but I wanted to do something that was more and I've been working for a couple years now actually on a Bible study of my own. But liturgies can get weird. Because what it has is like a couple passages. And then um you're supposed to kind of find a common thread through them. Um, However, I don't think this particular one. If there's a common thread, I'd have to really sit and meditate on it. Um, for like an amount of time we don't have while we're actively doing a Bible study. Now, I guarantee I'm going to go back because this is going to drive me nuts. See, I'm going to go back after this stream and I'm going to reread that and I'm going to go, shit. um, Oh, now I understand the thread. Okay. But yeah, usually I can't do it like I should have done this last night and looked into this, but I was having a not great day yesterday. So we're going to move on to James 5 verses 1 through 8. No, 1 through 6. Because I think that's a better passage to use for this particular topic. While we're on the subject of like Constantine, on the subject of empire, on the subject of the rich, I think this is a better passage to use. Come now, you rich people, weep and wail for the miseries that are coming to you. Your riches have rotted, and your clothes are moth eaten. Your gold and silver have rusted, and their rust will be evidence against you, and it will eat your flesh like fire. You have laid up treasure during the last days. Listen, the wages of the laborers who mowed your fields, which you kept back by fraud, cry out, and the cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord of hosts. You have lived on the earth in luxury and in pleasure. You have nourished your hearts and in a day of slaughter. You have condemned and murdered the righteous one who does not resist you. I think that is a better passage for us to utilize today. It is one of my favorites in the entire Bible. Uh, I prefer James to Paul on so many levels. Um, I think I know that Heather had mentioned that Muslims have a problem with Paul, and I can see why. There are other apostles who have so much better stuff to say. You've talked about hitting the nail on the Doge head there. Yeah, no, there's a lot of stuff throughout the Bible about um, crumbling empires, right? You see this within Sodom and Gomorrah, which I do want to do eventually a whole live stream on Sodom and Gomorrah and how that's kind of been weaponized. But essentially, what happened with that one is the city got too big for its britches. It These people had decided not to care for the poor and the needy. Their souls became corrupted. They were constantly engaging in sin. And the sin that they were engaging in was not homosexuality. Um, the sin they were engaging in was a lack of hospitality. They were turning away the poor and needy. They were committing sexual assault. That is why they were punished. It was not. It was not anything to do with just being gay. There were very different ways to view homosexual, like, relationships in general. In ancient times, they did not view relationships the same way we do today, because there was a lot more about like property. Women were seen as property, so there was it's not homophobia, it's misogyny. It's about how, like, a lot of that stuff, in my opinion, is either about preventing people making property out of other men, or about sanitation. So yeah, I do not think, and in Sodom and Gomorrah, it's very clearly just has nothing to do with homosexuality at all. It's purely about sexual assault. If you read it, I think it's very difficult actually to come to the conclusion it's about, like, loving same-sex couples. Um, your book should be Problems with Paul. I do have lots of problems with Paul, man. So I have complicated. Sorry, I've got to hang now. I've got complicated feelings on Paul. Um, Paul was. I see we're getting off topic already, but I guess this is what we're doing. We're just going to let the conversation flow, okay? I'm just going to word vomit for you guys. Um, the Paul, I believe, now other people disagree with me on this. Um, I believe Paul was doing his best. I think he was doing his best. We have a man who was trying to spread a religion, essentially using the ancient postal service. And he had been someone who had been, like, radicalized before he became a Christian. And I think what we can learn from Paul, because even though I have a problem with Paul and a lot of the things he says, I think there's still a lot to learn from Paul, which is that when you can change your belief system, right? But you have to deconstruct the old one. You can't just walk right into a new belief system and not do the work to deconstruct all the beliefs you had before that. I've seen this with people who grew up very evangelical, then realizing that they no longer connect with evangelicalism, or they have trauma from evangelicalism, and they run in the opposite direction. But they never actually unpacked being an evangelical. And I think a similar thing is happening with Paul. Paul was part of a very, very fundamentalist group of fundamentalist sect of Judaism. Um, and he became a Christian without unpacking that fundamentalism. And I think that that is what we can learn the most from Paul. Is that even with when you try to go into something with good intentions, right? If you haven't unpacked the past, who you were before that transformation, you will still make mistakes. You will still hold on to a lot of the same beliefs you had before. Paul has a lot of guilt and was very educated. The lesson of Paul is to not let your guilt eat you alive while doing restorative justice. Yeah, really and truly. Paul is low key viewed as a false prophet in Islam. I can see how people can come to that conclusion. I can see how people can come to that conclusion. Like I said, my relationship with Paul is strained. Um, so I see we're gonna like completely get off topic today, and we're just gonna complain about Paul. I do feel like it's necessary context going in, though. You know what I mean? I feel like having an understanding of Paul and seeing him as a man instead of a prophet um, is very helpful. Seeing him as just a guy. He's just a guy. He's a guy making mistakes and doing his best. Okay. Um, and I don't think there's anything particularly special about Paul. Um, and I think that's almost more meaningful because Paul is making it up as he goes and fucking it up as he goes. And I find that humanity to be more meaningful than pretending Paul is or Paul's words are on par with Jesus or any of the other prophets. And I've noticed a lot of evangelical Protestants do this. Um, Especially fundamentalists, they tend to hold Paul in more regard, like in a, more highly regarded than Jesus, and I think that's a mistake. I think that's a huge mistake. I love your username, Gospel Queries. I think that's amazing. Paul is remembered because Paul was a great writer in a time when letters were the foundation of the religion. He just wrote more than most. Yeah, really and truly, Paul was like highly educated. Um, and he could write a lot of letters, and that was how he took care of things. Um, well, and it's not even necessarily that he wrote more than most. Um, I would say that more of his survived. Um, because we have no idea how many letters the other apostles may have written or had their scribes write. Because many of them could have just been lost to time. That's another thing to kind of keep in mind when studying the Bible. Maybe we should kind of go over that. Like how to read the Bible. I know that this is kind of a messy stream. This is my first time leading a Bible study, so we're learning this together, okay? Um, and my ADHD brain is not going to stay on topic very much. So when it comes to reading the Bible, there are several mistakes I have seen people make. Um, First off, do not read the Bible as a solid, cohesive narrative from beginning to end. You will fail. It won't make any sense. You have to understand that this is a book written by many different authors over a long period of time. Um, I have literally seen Christians who do not understand that Paul's epistles are letters from the Apostle Paul. A lot of Christians, and this is crazy to me, think that the entire Bible was just like, I guess, written by God, like literally like penned out by God and like given to Moses or something. I don't know. It's very strange. Better qualified as an anthology. Yeah, I mean there's stories, like a lot of Genesis is like folklore. Um and then there's some kind of shoddy historical record keeping in there somewhere. Um there's of course the Torah, which is like the laws that were given to the Israelites. Um there's poetry and songs. Yeah, there's a lot. It's just a collection of works. And then there's, like the Gospels, there's letters. Um, it is a collection of works that should not be read in chronological order. Now, they do inform each other because some of it is like commentary on earlier works. You saw in that passage I read from Hebrews that he brings up Esau. So, like, there is reference to things that happened earlier um, throughout the text. Like, prophets will reference other prophets. Um, Characters will reference kings of the past. Things like that will happen. So, it's all important. But for that reason, but it's not a cohesive narrative. It contradicts itself quite often, actually. um and that is something that has to be kept in mind, is that it's not a cohesive narrative that you read cover to cover. um the other thing I like people to keep in mind is that God is unknowable. I look at the Bible as a franchise like Doctor Who or Star Trek, with different writers, sequels, and remakes. The inspiration is the same, but it branches out a lot. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. And like Star Trek or Doctor Who, you got things in different mediums, right? Um, it's because you've got like books, you've got comic books, you've got TV shows, movies, and you got to kind of think of it in that way as well. It's more like an extended universe, I guess. The Abrahamic extended universe. Um, where was I at? Okay, yeah, God is unknowable. I don't like that word, but I haven't figured out a better phrase to use, because I don't think it's impossible to know God as much as it's impossible to know God in God's entirety. God is huge, mysterious. Uh, a lot of times we don't understand, right? Um, and so I think a lot of the Bible is people, human beings, doing what we do best, which is personifying things. Um, Personifying a force that is far beyond our understanding. And what I want you to do is I want you to imagine you are a shepherd boy in Rome, right? You're a shepherd boy in Rome. You're sitting up on a mountain with your sheep, and you're just chilling there. And all of a sudden, the mountain that's across the valley, your village is in the valley, there's a mountain across the valley, and it explodes. It just explodes all of a sudden, starts smoking, explodes. Um, I imagine, you know, you would probably think God is angry. You know, you're this little shepherd boy, you're illiterate, you've never left your village, and the mountain explodes. I imagine you would think we have done something to piss God off, right? And I think a lot of the Bible is written in that way. It is kind of this shorthand for the unknown because we don't know how God works. No one knows how God works. Um, we just kind of got to give it our best guess. So people would say, "Oh, God is angry. God is jealous. Um, God is happy." And that's why we have good crops. We've done something good. We've made God happy, and that's why our crops have grown this year. Um, I tend to subscribe more to a belief system where um, I uh, I kind of think of God as a very frustrated computer programmer who is constantly trying to course correct from all the stuff we are fucking up. Um, like God set this world up, had a plan, but humans also have free will, and we keep doing shit to make things bad. And I think I view God more like that, and I think God's probably like flustered and messy. I don't I don't know. That's just how I view God. I know a lot of people view God differently, but that's kind of how I see things. So we can all really only give it our best guess. There we go. A lot of early religions viewed God or gods that way. Yeah, exactly. So when reading the Bible, I think it's important to keep that in mind as well. That why did like people will bring up, oh, God is evil, God killed all these babies. Okay, what how are ancient people supposed to explain a bunch of babies dying? Right? Like if a bunch of babies die, they don't know about germs. They don't know about plague. Well, they know plagues existed, but they don't know what causes them. They don't know about you have ancient water sanitation practices that aren't always the best, though there was a lot of advancement on that front. But I mean, these are things that people did not know about. So if a bunch of babies die, it is logical to come to the conclusion that you did something to upset God. The sheep Kano. But doesn't Job contradict that? It's the first book written making the point that suffering doesn't equal God being mad. Job. Job is such a frustrating book of the Bible for me. Um I so there was a when Martin Luther read the book of Revelation, he was like, I'll be real, guys, I'm not going to kick this out of canon, but I'm not really sure what to do with it. So y'all are just going to have to kind of figure that one out for yourself. And that is how I feel about the book of Job. Um, I don't know how to reckon with the book of Job. I'm still figuring that out. And that's, I think, an okay thing to admit. I think it's an okay thing to admit that you are still wrestling with certain passages or books of the Bible. I think that that's kind of a lifelong process, where your views and beliefs will change over time as you learn and grow. So yeah, when it comes to Job, I'm still figuring that one out. Not gonna lie. There's a reason I've never done a sermon on the book of Job. And it's because I feel like I don't quite have a grip on that one yet. I don't quite have a grip on that one yet. Would you ever cover non-canonical texts like the books of Enoch, or does that get too wacky? I don't think it's necessarily wrong to cover those books as long as it is kept in context that it is not the biblical canon. I, for example, love um, the Gospel of Thomas very much, but that one is considered heretical. You may like the Quranic version of Job better. I should look into that. I would love to hear your thoughts on Job because maybe that could help me have a better grasp on it. Um, I guess when it comes to the book of Job, I feel like the book of Job can somewhat more fit into what I believe, which is God is a perpetually frustrated programmer just doing their best. Um, but it also, I don't know, when it comes to like the context of it within scripture, like I said, I'm still wrestling with it. I call those biblical fanfic just for giggles. Okay, so when it comes to fan fiction, I don't want any. If you ever hear any Christian be like, no, that's heretical, you can't make fan fiction of the Bible. I would like to remind everyone that Bible fan fiction is a time honored tradition. We have been doing this forever. Christians, especially, really, really like their fan fiction. We have been making fan fiction forever. Um, I mean, look at things like Dante's Inferno, you know? Paradise Lost. I'm trying to think of some other ancient ones. My brain is not totally functional yet this morning. Um, but I mean, we've been making fan art and fan fiction of the Bible forever. Forever. And you can continue to do so. And you can continue to come up with new ways to interpret things. That's the thing about the Bible that I find so fascinating is I don't think that there is one way to interpret the Bible. I do think there are some people who are incredibly wrong about how they interpret it. Namely my fellow Christians a lot of the time. But I don't think that there is just one way to interpret things. Like I said, um, I think a lot of the rules that people see as being about homosexuality, I think they were more about like taking men as property or sanitation laws. Um, Job is the experience of anger, sadness, arguing, turmoil. But most people just talk about the God parts, which is not the point. You are the point. Your feelings are the point. You know what? That's a really good way to look at that. Maybe I'll read the book of Job again tonight and take that into consideration. Way of looking at it. And I should have thought of that sooner, honestly, because I do think in a lot of ways, when it comes to the Bible, the people are the point. Like I said earlier, I think God is sometimes just like literary shorthand for the unknown. Um, it is how the people respond to God that's really the important part in all of this. Mm. Heather, we're going to have to talk about the Quranic version of Job tonight. That sounds really interesting. Um, so other things that people need to keep in mind when reading the Bible. Um, the Torah and the major and minor prophets have been, especially the Torah, have been remarkably well preserved throughout history. A Torah from 2,500 years ago is going to be pretty much the same as the Torah you read today. It is very, very well preserved. Um, the Gospels, not so much. um, and the reason that the Torah is so well preserved is because there were systems set in place to ensure it stayed that way. When it comes to the Gospels and the epistles and things like that, they were written and copied by the guy who could read. The guy in the cave who could read. They there was not much of a system to that. So, different documents of the Gospels we have vary wildly. There is a book by Bart Ehrman called Misquoting Jesus that really breaks this down. Um, it was literally the guy in the cave who could read, or the guy in the cave who could write. Some of the guys who were like copying down, some of the scribes who were copying the Gospels, um, had a basic understanding of language, and that was about it. Like, we're talking like what we would consider like a second grade reading level, but if they could make the letters, they could copy them. And so we end up with a lot of mistakes, um, and it is important to keep that in mind. It's sad that people decided to reinterpret them so much. I don't think interpretations are a bad thing. I think they're a wonderful thing. I think we should be discussing more and more and more what these passages mean. And that is a time honored Jewish tradition that I am very sad that Christians largely gave up. Um, you have to debate this stuff. You have to. There is no way around it. Um, and I think it's important to debate this stuff, uh, as a Christian at least, through the law of Christ. The law of Christ is love God, love your neighbor, right? Um, so I think it's important when interpreting the Bible, when interpreting especially the Torah, that you do so through the lens of love. How does this rule, how does this passage help me love God and love my neighbor? And if I have created an interpretation that does not lead to those two things, then is this an interpretation worth having? Um, and I think that's kind of the most important part, at least through a Christian lens. I feel like if religious education was presented in this way to me growing up, I might have actually stayed in the church. I have had many, many people tell me this. I need y'all to know that I am a big fucking nerd. Like, that is why I do what I do. It's because I like nerding out about ancient documents. Um, and I want people to know that they can have a relationship with these documents that is healthy. I want people to know that they can have a relationship with religion, a relationship with God that is healthy. It doesn't have to be this way. I am a man who very firmly believes that religion benefits society if utilized correctly. Um, Unfortunately, it can also be utilized as a tool for power. And that's really unfortunate. I meant not having the original text. Sorry for not clarifying well. Oh, are you talking about like people like reinterpreting, like not being able to scribe? A lot of this stuff was not done on purpose. I don't. There were definitely people who changed the gospels on purpose. That has absolutely happened through history, but a lot of it was just mistakes. A lot of it was just mistakes. It was people just not having great literacy skills. You have to remember, early Christianity was the religion of the underclass. We're actually circling back around. Yay! We're circling back around to Constantine. We've come back around. We have to remember that early Christianity was definitely the underclass in society. Um, Jewish people at that time were already kind of the underclass of Rome, right? And then you had Christians, which were the underclass of everyone. And this was a very short period of history, right? I'm not going to sit here and be like, yes, this is still happening today. It's very obviously not. And the reason that is because of Constantine, because Christianity made a nasty little deal with empire, and it became the religion of the state. Christianity doesn't make sense as the religion of the state. It does not make sense. You can no longer interpret it through the lens of the state because it's very, very important that you know who you are in this story. What can we do about people who see harm as love? My dad worries about me being gay because he loves me and he is scared. I'm not saying it's right, but I don't know how to respond. This is something I've struggled with as well. People who believe in a eternal conscious torment after death. Um, and that is something that is so difficult to break people out of. Um, I don't really know what to do about all of that. Um, I have explained to people my views, the wrestling I have done and still do with the concept of hell. Um, which we will discuss in another stream. But when it comes to things like that, I think it's important to remember that while you should love your neighbor as yourself, um, that doesn't mean you love your neighbor in the same way as yourself. I think your neighbor um, has to consent to the way they're loved. I think your neighbor gets a say in that. Um, and if your neighbor is saying constantly, "This is hurting me," then you need to reevaluate the way you love people. I think that's the best I can do on that one. The best advice I can give. I was very much allowed to question UCC, but was not learning any of this about multiple copies of the Gospels or Gospels that didn't make it into the Bible, etc. Yes. So I highly recommend um, reading stuff from atheist theologians. Any Christian theologian you read from is going to have a bias. They just are. Um, I find that it can be helpful to read things from atheist theologians like Bart Ehrman uh, because they offer a different perspective that is a little bit more objective. Um, and I think that that can be very, very helpful for people. I may not be a Christian today, but I do love the idea of engaging with and debating the concepts within these texts instead of just rote memorization and thought stopping. Yeah, I said at the beginning of this, I was like, I don't memorize passages. I memorize like I will I think that media literacy is more important than being able to memorize and regurgitate scripture. I find that that only is only something people do when they are looking to weaponize that scripture in some way. And I don't think that's particularly helpful. Yeah, I've been unpacking a lot of that. Like my priest growing up encouraged engaging slash debating, but my teachers, etc., not so much. So unpacking it is hence. Okay, I'm having trouble parsing that one out. Um, yeah, no, question everything. Always question the Bible. Question every text. Ask why over and 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 over again. Seriously, I I have a little saying. I started as a Christian because my family was Christian. I read the Bible and became an atheist. I studied the Bible and became a Christian again. Um, I realized how much value was in this text once I started looking at it on its own terms instead of terms that the church had established for me. Once I started looking at it, wanting to know the truth, right? I don't go into biblical study wanting my worldview to be um what's the word I'm looking for? Validated. There we go. I'm not looking to validate my worldview. I go into religious studies wanting to know the truth and wanting to be challenged. And I find that so much more fascinating and meaningful because then I have to reckon with certain things that I otherwise would not have. I've had to learn how to reckon with concepts I otherwise would not have. Learning some basic history on the Bible is helpful and what type of book it is. I would love to stay, but I have a meeting with my boss at 10 and capitalism marches on. Godspeed, friend. Godspeed. Um, so yeah. Well, this but let's get back to Constantine, right? Before we wrap up so that we can kind of just go full circle, right? Um so when it comes to Constantine, um I think that was one of the greatest mistakes of the Christian church. I think making a deal with empire was one of the greatest mistakes of the Christian church. Um, Now it did ensure that Christianity survived, but I don't know. Uh in what form though? You know what I mean? In what form did Christianity survive? And I think that that was the moment that Christianity lost its way, that it became a religion of empire. And so now the thing you have to reckon with as a Christian is that Christianity is simultaneously the religion of the oppressor and the religion of the oppressed. It is both. And that is something that is hard to grapple with. Because it exists in these two entirely separate spheres. Um, And because of colonization and imperialism, that is even more the case now than it was in ancient times. Because now we've had a religion that has colonized like most of the world. Um, and so what you have is the oppressor who forced this religion onto people, and oppressed peoples who found their own interpretations and versions of the religion that was pressed upon them and feel very deeply about their faith. Um, and it is a hard thing to reckon with. It's a hard thing to wrestle with. It's something that I have had to wrestle with. Um, I don't know how many of you are aware of this. My great grandmother was raised in a residential school. Um, it was something my grandmother basically raised me. She never really talked about it. She would bring it up, but she never really got into details because it was so upsetting for her to talk about. And she was deeply devout. Um, because she had found her own way to look at Christianity. And there are lots and lots of marginalized people who are Christians who have their own version of Christianity that works for them. Um, and I think that that is the heart of what Christianity is supposed to be. It is marginalized people finding ways to find this message of hope, of an end to empire, of people working together and living in harmony that isn't that which has been forced on them, if that makes sense. Black theology is really helpful on this. Yes, really and truly. I I find quite often, now this is not true for all of them, obviously. But I quite often find the ministry of straight white men to be lacking. Definitely lacking. I do not think that Christianity is going to survive through them. I think right now what we are seeing is a split in the church, a schism, a fundamental schism that isn't happening in denominations necessarily, but is happening as the Christian church as a whole, which is we are now having to make a choice. Are we going to bow to Caesar or are we going to bow to God? And I think our nation has chosen to bow to Caesar. I think that's where a lot of Christians in America are at. Um, so especially white Christians in America. And I don't think that those can be the people who move us forward anymore. Most of the great ministry I am seeing right now is coming from um, Black people and women and queer people. That's where it is. It is the marginalized people who actually have a way to relate to this religion that was meant to be for the marginalized and has not been used that way um, for 1500 years. No, 15, yeah, 1500 years. So, but we can get, what do you want to, what do you want to discuss next time, guys? Let's see. Let's see what we got. What is next Wednesday? Because these are going to be happening on Wednesdays from here on out. Oh, it's Ash Wednesday. So we're going to be talking about death. we're not doing the liturgy. We're going to talk Ash Wednesday on Ash Wednesday. We're going to come to terms with our mortality, y'all. That's how we're going to do this. All right. So, what did you guys think of the stream? Let me know while I'm pulling up donos. I know it was a little bit all over the place. Like I said, this is my first time doing this type of stream. So it was a little all over the place. I feel like we weirdly did come full circle though. Like the conversation went in another direction for a little while, but then it came back eventually there towards the end to Constantine. I'm going to be looking into this liturgy tonight though, because that just seemed like such a weird a weird verse to use for that. You'd almost think that something from like Romans or something would have been chosen. All right. Active payment. Okay. So, it was good. I like the ramble rather than super structured. Feels conversational and not preachy. Good. I'm glad you liked it. I want it to be casual. Did I just bite my lip like an idiot? Okay. I want this to feel casual so that people can come back into exploring this text in a way that feels comfortable, right? I don't want it to feel like, I'm sitting here reading from this book, telling you what it means. I want you to explore it. So let's see. What's a good passage for Ash Wednesday? So that you guys can because we're going to be getting into Lent too. So we're going to be addressing our mortality, and we're going to be talking about Lent and fasting and giving things up. I think that's Oh, of course, there's like the classic Ecclesiastes. All go to one place, all are from the dust, and to dust all return. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, guys. That's what we're going to be kind of discussing. Ash Wednesday, I'm not going to lie. Ash Wednesday is one of my favorite Christian holidays. And it's one of my favorite Christian holidays because it is a time of year where most of the church doesn't actually shy away from the darkness of our religion, from the death and the pain and the horror. I think it's very important to acknowledge all of that. And Ash Wednesday is a perfect time to do that, to come to terms with your mortality, and the mortality of everyone and everything you love. So that's what we're going to be doing on next Wednesday. So yeah, I'm really sorry about stream starting so late. I don't know what to do about my tech. It's driving me crazy. But hopefully we can get something figured out before next time. Um but yeah, also before I head out, um I don't know if you guys have been thinking about it. Um but Lent is coming up. And this is the last stream I will be able to have with you before Lent proper, because Lent starts on Ash Wednesday. So, Lent is a time of fasting. It is a time of finding what is most important to you. Now, I don't recommend fasting from food if you have health concerns. I will not be doing that. I think it is an interesting challenge if you do not have health concerns. But if you do, do not try to fast completely from food. It will end poorly, and I don't want any of you guys to get hurt. So, uh, think about if you are interested in participating in Lent, which even if you are not Christian, um, I say it all the time. Christians colonized most of the world. Our beliefs are public domain now. Um, you can celebrate Lent if you are not a Christian. I do not care. Any Christian who has a problem with that needs to get over themselves. Um, so think about something that you could live without, right? Um, and we can discuss this stuff more throughout these Bible studies. Um, because we've been talking a lot in the other live streams about like divestment from capitalism. And I think that Lent is a good time to think about how to do that and what we can give up, what the essentials are, what matters most to us in life. Um, and I'd like to go over some of that stuff. And Heather says you can fast in solidarity with us Muslim folk for Ramadan too. So, all right. Well, if you like what I do here, we are going to be starting our garden soon. I have on both the Amazon wish list. No, I have on the Amazon wish list for my family. It's like the family wish list. A tiller and some gardening soil and some other garden supplies that we could really use. We are going to be starting a garden in our backyard. We have 3 plots that we have measured out to create these gardens. And then the UU here in Huntington is also going to be starting a garden. Their yard needs a lot of work. So if you are local, consider dropping in there to help them with their yard work. I'm trying to think of what else. Oh, well, our outreach is going to be we just had an outreach. It went pretty well. Our next one will be the last Saturday of March, which is the 29th. We are having queer movie night next Friday. If you are someone who is local, feel free to come to that as well. And of course, if you would like to help keep my lights on so that I can keep doing this with you guys, then consider looking at my link tree and finding all the ways you can donate um, to either our clergy fund or our outreach fund. Also, if you can become a patron, I would love to get to the point where I no longer have to ask for tips. I would like to get to the point where the Patreon just covers my monthly expenses and I can uh, plan accordingly and budget accordingly. I don't like being like desperate sometimes because I couldn't figure out how to budget for the month because I didn't know how much I was getting. That is unpleasant. So I would like to get the Patreon to the point where I can just rely on that. Speaking of the Patreon, I would like to give a special thanks to Jennifer Davidson, Margaret Capehart, Jessica Bednarak, Ariana, Emma Price, Allison Hill, Lauren O'Connor, Mao, Nathan, Morgan Westerin, Eleanor Bucksbaum, Jay Winia, Morgan May, Taylor Condra, River Johnson, Angelini Pellegrini, Faith Benamy, Kristen McSorley, Jacqueline Gordon, Devin Watson, Val Smith, Post Punk Pastor, Pauline Gibson, and John Borg. Thank you guys so much for your patronage. It is greatly appreciated. Also, somebody asked earlier about watch time. Yes, my live streams do count towards watch time. I have a video essay. I'm almost finished with it. It's taking me forever. I'm almost done. I am thinking there is a possibility I might be able to get into the studio next week to record that. Which would be very cool. So yeah, hopefully a video essay coming out within the next couple of weeks for you guys as well. A substantial one. At least half hour, 45 minutes long. So yeah. All right. Well, remember guys, drink a water, eat a food, be kind to yourself, to your neighbor, and to the earth. Thank you guys so much for everything you do. I hope you have a wonderful day. And I am right on time because my battery's about to die. Have a wonderful day and God bless.